Hey guys, it is time for history. So take out your history books and turn to page 433 first because we're going to review our comprehension check. So looking over what we talked about with Neil Armstrong, okay? So we talked about these two men, John Glenn and Neil Armstrong, astronauts who did much to change the history of America's space program. And so they were very well known. They did great things and made great strides in the American space program. And so make sure to review over the things that we've talked about with these two men. Remember, your test is next Friday, so you need to be prepared for that. But think about what these two men did and remember some of the strides that they made, and don't get them confused. I know we went through them kind of quickly, but remember which man was with which. So we're going to talk about a little bit of that today. In which war did Neil Armstrong fly fighter jets? In which war? A, the Korean War. In the Korean War, he flew fighter jets. Remember, both Neil Armstrong and John Glenn fought in Korean War. Okay, so Korean War is where Neil Armstrong flew fighter jets. Number two, Neil Armstrong became a blank at Edwards Air Force Base in California. Not an astronaut. That wouldn't, he's at an Air Force base, so he didn't become an astronaut. He became a test pilot. Very good, those of you that got that letter C. He became a test pilot, okay? Number three, what country launched the first satellite into space? Remember, we were trying to have this space race and see who was going to get there first. Remember, letter B, Russia was the first country to do that. We didn't quite make it to be the first country to launch a satellite, but Russia did. So letter B. Number four, when Neil Armstrong commanded the Gemini 8, it was the first spacecraft to what? Not land on the moon, okay, or orbit the moon, okay. And remember, we didn't talk about spacecraft orbiting the moon. We talked about orbiting the Earth, but remember, it was not the Gemini 8 that landed on the moon. What you'll see down the next question, that is the spacecraft that went up into the air, and then detaching from that, there was a smaller vehicle spacecraft that landed on the moon called the Eagle. Remember that? So the Eagle has landed was a big phrase back in those times, and back then, because that's what they said when they finally touched down on the moon. If you watch that video that I had for you from YouTube, you'll have heard, oh, the Eagle has landed. The Eagle is there on the moon or something. But the Eagle is the little spacecraft that was from Apollo 11, the bigger spacecraft that landed on the moon. Okay, so this Gemini 8 was the first spacecraft to dock with another space vehicle. Okay, so they docked, they connected together, and that was the first one to do that. So Gemini 8 was the first spacecraft to dock with another space vehicle. So think that through. Make sure if you missed it, go back, reread that section just so you can get familiarized with it, because it could be a little tricky to remember and you want to know it for tests or quizzes if it happens to be on. Okay. Then, number five, when Neil Armstrong commanded the Apollo 11, he and Buzz Aldrin became the first men in the world to land on the moon. So Apollo 11 is the spacecraft that was able to bring Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong up to land on the moon. The Eagle is the smaller vehicle that kind of took off and branched off from there and landed specifically, but Apollo 11, okay, was what landed on the moon. Name three things Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin left on the moon. What were three things? One of them was a flag. Very good. Yes. Then they left equipment that measures the distance from moon to the earth. Okay, so they left equipment that could measure. Then they also left a plaque that said that Americans were the first ones to come and be on the moon. And so that is those are the three things that they left: flag, a plaque, and an instrument to measure the distance from moon to the earth. All right, good. So turn to page 434. 434. and we're going to talk about Ronald Reagan. He was born in 1911 and he died in 2004. Growing up, look at that little Dutchman, Ronald Reagan's father exclaimed when Ronald was born. The nickname Dutch stuck with him as he was growing up. Because Ronald's father was a traveling salesman, his family moved from town to town until Ronald was 9 years old when they settled in a small town in Illinois. His mother was a godly woman who taught her children the Bible. She made sure Ronald and his brother Neil were in church every Sunday. She helped many people. She gave to the poor and taught her boys to always look for someone whose life they could make better. I love that. I want you to think about that for a minute. She didn't tell them, just go and be kind to everybody and be nice. No, she said, look for somebody whose life you can make better. Now, again, we've talked about this in Bible and in, I think it was health. Ways that you can make somebody's life better could simply just be by giving them a phone call and checking on them, sending them a card, letting them know that you're thinking of them, praying for them. That's all it takes. But that's what his mother said. Why don't you go out and find somebody whose life you can make better? I love that. Because before Ronald started school, his mother taught him to read. So before he even got to school, his mother already taught him. By the time he was 5 years old, he was reading the newspaper. We don't know if you guys don't know of newspapers as much, but back in the day, that was the thing. Dads would sit there with this big paper in front of them, reading this newspaper from start to finish and finding out all the news. They didn't have the internet and all that back then. So he, at 5 years old, I can't imagine, like reading the newspaper, probably like his dad, and, reading, but he was able to do that at 5 years old. He especially loved to read adventure books. Ronald was good at many different sports. He also found other ways to get involved in his school. He acted in plays, worked on the yearbook, and became president of his senior high school class. College years. I need to go to college, Ronald Reagan thought. Since his family could not afford to pay for a college education, he needed to find another way. We can't afford it, Ronald. Sorry, there's nothing we can do. Well, I've got to do something. So look what he does. He doesn't give up. He spoke to the president of Eureka College near his home. I want to go to college, but I need a scholarship. Now, scholarships were for those who, did really well in school and had these certain grades, or they were really amazing at sports and they could play really well, and people would give them scholarships. So he's going to the president of the college and he's going, I want to go to college. I need a scholarship. I can play all kinds of sports. So, let me play sports for you and you can give me a scholarship and then I'll come to your college. Well, Ronald boldly told that to the president. The president was so impressed with his initiative. An initiative is that drive to just say, you know what, I can do this. And if you just give me a chance, I know that I can earn this scholarship by playing sports really well for you guys. And I can at least go to college and learn what I need to learn. So please accept me. He had that initiative. And so the president gave Ronald a scholarship. Normally, people come and they watch and see if you're good enough to get a scholarship. Ronald Reagan said, I can play tons of sports. Let me come and play for you. Give me a scholarship and I'll be there, And they're like, okay, well, I think he's probably telling the truth. He seems like he'd be a good candidate for a scholarship. Let's do it. Let's give him a scholarship. And he got one. Really quickly, look at the words at the bottom of the page, important words, places, and names. Communism. Communism is a form of government that takes over a country and claims to own all of its businesses, homes, and land. So people in communist countries, they don't own their own land. The government says, we own your land. We own your business. We own your home. We own all of it, and we can tell you what to do with it. Important places, Berlin Wall. It's a wall that divided Berlin, Germany after World War II. And then important names, obviously, Ronald Reagan. He was an athlete, a writer, an actor, and politician. The 40th president of the United States. So he was the 40th president of the United States. And then Justice Sandra Day O'Connor. She is the first female justice appointed to the Supreme Court. While Ronald Reagan was in college, he stayed very busy. He played football, ran track, and he swam. He was a reporter for the school newspaper and the editor of the school yearbook. So he still was part of the yearbook in college. He also worked part time to pay his school bills. For 7 summers, he worked as a lifeguard. During these summers, he saved 77 people from drowning. 77 people were saved by him as a lifeguard. Years after college. After college, Ronald Reagan decided to become an actor. He had enjoyed being in plays when he was younger, but could an actor make enough money? The United States was in a time of trouble called the Great Depression. Many people had no jobs or money. Mr. Reagan's father and brother Neil both lost their jobs. How are they going to provide for this family? His mother helped earn money by sewing for people, but it was not enough to support the family. Instead of acting, Mr. Reagan decided to get a job to help his family. I love acting and it's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful outlet for me, but it's not making enough money. I've got to do something else. I've got to find a job where I can help my family. So he worked for a radio station as a sports announcer, like, oh, and he's going and he's hitting, oh, he's going to go and get a goal, or, oh, it looks like, okay, oh, yeah, home run, he's announcing sports. And he was good. He did very well. Radio listeners loved the excitement in Ronald Reagan's voice as he told them what was happening in the baseball games. Becoming an actor. Later on, Ronald Reagan still wanted to try acting. He still loved it so much, and he thought, I think I still want to do it. He was able to make money for his family announcing radio sports, but he decided, I'm going to try acting again. He was surprised when he got a job right away. He began acting in films and made enough money to buy a home in California for his parents. During his acting jobs, he married an actress named Jane Wyman. They had a daughter and adopted a little boy. Sadly, their marriage ended in divorce. World War II had begun. Ronald Reagan went into the army and helped to make training videos for the military. When his time in the army was over, he went right back to acting. Ronald Reagan later met and married an actress named Nancy Davis, and they had 2 children. I know, it's getting so good, right? And serving in government, and we're going to find out what he did, but we're not going to find it out today. We have to wait to find it out next week. Sorry. But how neat the life of this young man as he, goes from not being able to afford college to getting scholarships to go to college, the little Dutch men, as his dad called him, to working hard wherever he was, helping his family be able to survive. He left acting to go into sports radio, and from there went back to acting. And now acting was providing money and was giving him what he needed. And he was able to buy a nice home for his family in California. He was married to one lady, um, Jane Wyman. Sadly, that ended in divorce, but then he married Nancy Davis and they had 2 children. And we'll have to wait to find out what else happens as he served in government. And there's something with candy that's going to be coming up. I know you'll be interested to learn about that. So stay tuned and we'll find out more about Ronald Reagan the next time. All right, take care. Have a great day. See you soon. Bye.